Hi, everybody. Welcome to Smart Adventures. My name is Corey, and with me is John. John, Dylan is not with us today, but how are things with you?
I am grand, thank you very much.
Are you 100
How
grand?
about you? Well, I won't go that far, but let's say I'm 5 grand.
Yeah, 5 grand's a good amount. That's a good amount.
Yeah.
I'm doing pretty well as well. So, Dylan is not with us again, and that has to do with complications with his moon base. I know that's where he was last week when we were discussing like the DC and the Marvel movie worlds. I understand
Mm-hmm.
something went wrong up there though.
To do with his death laser. Is
Hmm.
it malfunctioned or just fallen apart? Like some moon rats have got into the wires or something? I don't know.
I was like maybe it was like some like faulty like Acme product kind of design, some real Wile E. Coyote stuff going on up there.
Yeah, I'd hope so.
Hope so. I mean, the last time Wile E. Coyote was going to have a movie, Warner Brothers Discovery decided they didn't need to make it.
Well,
Didn't
yeah.
that come out though?
And apparently,
No,
I was gonna say,
did it?
I, I think it's supposed to be being
Okay,
released.
because I remember they put out that there was that Donald Duck, not Donald Duck, Daffy Duck, Porky Pig movie that came out in theaters last year. That was actually really good. And I think
Hmm,
that's what motivated somebody to buy the rights to get that Wile E. Coyote movie to put it out. But that's like a done movie.
that could be it. Yeah,
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 because I
yeah.
remember like the plot has something to do with like Wile E. Coyote suing Acme for all of the accidents he sustained using their products.
Which is kind of a genius storyline, to be honest.
I hope it pays out for him. I remember when the Muppets came back with the idea of it being like a talk show, and like I just remember there was a joke about Fozzie the Bear using a dating app, saying that it's difficult to put your bear in your profile and not get certain attention thrown your way. Which I was like, oh, gay joke in the Muppets. All right,
Yeah.
all right. But yeah, well, we hope that Dylan is able to repair the death. Well, do we want Dylan to repair the death laser?
I mean, as long as he's not pointing it at us, then yeah,
Well,
I'm
that's the
fine
problem.
with
I
that.
live in a country he's likely wanting to point it at.
Yeah.
I
I
might be collateral
mean, to
damage.
be fair, I guess ours is as well, so
Well,
you
is he?
never know.
I don't know. He seems. Does he have a problem with what's going on in the UK at the moment? Was he a Prince? Was he a Prince Andrew
Uh,
loyalist?
no,
Shouldn't put that out
I
there, should
don't
we?
think so. All right, Jeff. No.
Shouldn't do that.
I mean, we'll let him defend himself when he's
Yeah.
back.
There we go. Well, that would be. We'll ask him that first thing. We'll introduce the show, and then we'll say, Dylan, what are your thoughts on Prince Andrew, the former Prince Andrew, the Windsor,
Yes.
formerly known as Prince Andrew? But oh well. So because it's the two of us, and typically we talk about movies, but we literally just did that. I was kind of thinking
Hmm.
of different things that John and I could discuss, and John and I have a lot of fundamental differences. For one, John is a disembodied voice, and I have a video. Uh, John is from the United Kingdom, and I'm from the United States of America. One of the other ways that John and I are different is how we consume our comic books. I am someone who has a weekly pull at my local comic book store. I go in every Saturday. I say hello to the staff. They give me what I get, and then I leave. And John is a trade waiter, meaning that John reads his books in the collected trade paperbacks. And do you order those from a site? You go to a store to pick them up? It kind of varies.
I usually, well, I would typically order them from Amazon, but I don't really use Amazon for it anymore because one, I don't like pumping money into like a mega corporation that basically controls the world, and two, I can get them slightly cheaper on eBay as well. So
There you go.
I found like a pretty decent seller there. So
Well,
yeah,
you're
I try
supporting
and
small
get them
businesses that
from
way.
eBay. Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, for those who are not as inclined to understand what the differences are, the monthly books come out on a monthly basis. You get one issue, it's usually about somewhere between 22 and 24 pages. You pay your six, ugh, it pained
Eesh.
myself just now when I said $6. Sometimes they're $6. Most of the time they're like 5 or 4 per issue,
Mm,
and then you take them home and you read them, and then you go and you continue the story in the next chapter in the following month in some instances. Or we will talk about shortly, couple of months, maybe, if you're lucky. Um,
yeah.
and with the trades, they're called people usually who are trade readers are called trade waiters because you would wait until the storyline concludes. All of those issues are collected into one bound book that you would pay usually between at least American. I see them going for $20 to $30. If it's like an omnibus, like a big collection, you're looking at probably like more than that, a lot more than that in some instances. But
Mm,
you wait for those. So, a storyline could be over for months and months or maybe even a year before you really get to read it. And that, there are
yeah.
pros and cons with both. So, I guess first and foremost, I read comics from my comic book store because I didn't grow up with a comic book store. I think like in our very first episode when we were first talking about this, I lived in a part of the country where a lot of specialty stores like that just didn't exist. So I would get comic
Mm,
books from like people's yard sales, and like it's like 1992, 1993, and a lot of the comics are coming from like 1980 something or 1970 something. So I was like reading a lot of old
yeah.
stuff, an issue here, an issue there. If you're lucky, you could get a couple of issues together and you could actually follow a storyline. Another thing that would do, and they've actually made a comeback because I saw my local grocery store they were doing this. You used to be able to get these packets like sort of in cellophane, and for like $10 you would get like somewhere between 5 to 8 comics. You didn't necessarily know what they all were going to be. Sometimes they'd have a theme, but you could get them that way. And there was like a local kind of dollar store that would sell those in the 90s as well, because I remember like the Bloodline storyline, um, between the Avengers and the X-Men. That was a very special storyline for me as a kid because that was one of the first storylines I could read from beginning to end because all of those issues were in
Mm,
those bundles. So like I think I bought
yeah.
like 3 of those, and through those 3 I was able to combine and make a whole storyline. It was like a momentous occasion. But so when I moved out of that part of the country, well, before I moved out of that part of the country, in the 2000s, where internet purchasing was still kind of new and a little scary, I convinced my mother to once a month buy issues of comics for me from Midtown Comics out of New York City. So I would get issues
Mm,
mailed to me from New York, and I could read them that way. And then I finally moved out of that part of West Virginia into a college town that had a comic book store, and then I was able to set up a pull list and could go every week and pick up stuff. And then they had the wall, so you could pick up stuff even if you weren't like, I've never heard of this. Let me grab this. And like that was very, it was a very nice process for me over a decade ago because it made it so much easier to read. And I guess that's really why I still read on a weekly basis like that still, because of just the ease of being able to go and pick up stuff. And there's that sense
mm.
of community. I've made friends over the last 10 years, the people who work at the comic book store. There's I'm about to start listing names like that was going to mean anything. But yeah, no, you get to know the locals there. You get to be part of the little store community. I have a nice store that's not that's a very healthy environment. It's not toxic. Probably helps that
Mhm.
95% of the staff are like queer women. So, not really shitty people there because they kind of get chased out. But
Yeah, yeah.
that's a real motivating factor for me reading single issues on a weekly basis. I do have some trades. I've picked up a couple recently and I'm looking over there now. But that's usually older stuff that I will pick up on kind of a
Mm.
whim occasionally. So that's my background in it, John. Why did you start as a trade reader?
Well, I when I started like buying trades. which must have been sort of around 20 years ago. Like, my thought process was it would be just like the easiest way to kind of collect everything, because trades are handy because you do get significant chunks of runs altogether. So, you don't have to worry about tracking down a certain issue or anything like that. It just felt like the easiest way to do it. And yeah, so that's basically what I've done for the last 20 years is just like certain series, just like try and collect as many trades that are available as possible to build up as much of a run of the comics as possible. So I've like during that time come up pretty close to like getting complete runs on stuff like Daredevil. I think like the X-Men as well. I've got like a pretty significant amount of those from start to finish. Spider-Man 2. Um, and yeah, it means that, if I really, really wanted to, I could start reading from the beginning and almost get to the end. So that was just, yeah, what I've done and what I, will probably continue doing for the rest of my life now.
Okay. I would love to do an episode with you to talk about Daredevil because I know that Daredevil is a character that's really important to you, and I feel like we've never really spoken much about Daredevil. Because I remember you saying like you almost
Yeah.
have a complete run. I'm like, how the hell have we not really done a deep dive on Daredevil with John? That's a good idea to put down in the bank at some point. So
Mm.
so John, like I said, there are instances where I buy trades as I see them out. Like for example, I have over there right now. Actually, I'll just grab them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so these are the last trades that I've purchased. After we had a conversation about Banshee when we were ranking the X Men, I went ahead and I got the Essential Generation X Back to School. Price point
Oh,
on this
nice.
price point on this is 40. I think I got it for about 50 on eBay. Because same reason, if I can avoid buying it,
Okay.
I will. This is a big one.
Yeah.
This is an omnibus. This is Golden Age Green Arrow. This
Oh,
retailed
damn.
at $125. I think I got it for 90 on eBay. But this is the Golden Age comics for like 1930s and 40s of Green Arrow.
Nice.
I have the Suffering Game for the Adventure Zone. This is kind of a cheat because they don't put out monthlies for this. So the
Mm-hmm.
Adventure Zone was a podcast where a bunch of like three brothers and their dad were playing Dungeons and Dragons, and so this is just the animated or the comic version of what they did on the podcast. That went for $20. I have Superboy, the Man of Tomorrow. This was retail 17. I actually read
Mm-hmm.
this as the monthly as it was coming out, but I just liked the story and I really liked this version of Superboy, so I wanted to buy the trade to kind of help support the character. Because that's important.
Yeah, yeah.
That is important, and we will talk a little bit about that, I think. Next
Mm.
up is Antioch from Image Comics. This was $17 as well. This one was kind of a rare, kind of an interesting situation as well. So Antioch was supposed to be an ongoing monthly comic that was a continuation of the creative team's original monthly series Frontiersman, but the artist ran into some health issues and had to miss deadlines, and Image was like, hey, we can keep delaying this or we can just put this all together as a trade for you so that way you at least have the story done. So they decided to just put it out as a trade instead of trying to do monthlies.
Ah, nice.
And the last thing I got is another Epic collection, and this is Ghost Rider Danny Ketch Vengeance Reborn, which was the 90s Ghost Rider series. This one also retailed for 45, and I think I paid just cover price for it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I was saying. Like, I will get trades, but they're usually either like special situations or they are old storylines. Like, I don't think I've gotten like that Superboy Man of Tomorrow is probably the most recent storyline I've picked up in trade since probably Azrael,
Mm.
Sword of Azrael.
Oh, okay.
So again, that
The
is. Go
I
ahead.
tend to do a mix of the two. So like those you had the Epic collections there. Those are the like sort of main like big books I try and pick up every time they come out. For like certain characters at least, because those are the best way of like, diving into the Marvel vaults really.
Hmm.
But then yeah, like I've also been buying like the sort of smaller trades that come out for the more recent runs as well. So like covering all the different X books during the Krakoa age and stuff like that, and Spider-Man. I've got like so many Spider-Man books from basically like the start of the 2000s onwards. Um, and yeah, like try and mix it up. So, I've got a bit of both, but it does mean I end up getting a bit of crossover sometimes where like sometimes I'll have like a trade for like a specific, few issues and then end up getting like the Epic collection or whatever, and it's got those specific issues in there. And I kind of really need to get better at sorting through those and kind of maybe trying to sell off the ones I don't need because
Hmm.
when you've been collecting trades for 20 years,
Get
it
doubles.
soon starts taking up a lot of space.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I've got a bookshelf in another room that is full of trades, and the shelf is bowing in certain spots where it's like I'm fighting that inner like um detail oriented freak in me where it's like no, it has to be alphabetical to the point like all right, there's a
Mhm.
lot of weight in the middle of that shelf and it's gonna collapse at some point. um, like for example, like I have the all six of the Starman omnibus, and that's a lot of
Mhm.
weight. It was also, I will tell you,
Yeah.
probably the most expensive books I've ever purchased were the Starman ones. I put down
Oh,
more money on the Starman omnibus than any others because that's so.
wow.
Yeah, yeah. So this is a little disorganized, and I kind of like that it's disorganized. So before we kind of get into like pros and cons, and it sounds like we already kind of talked about cons of like they take up a lot of space. Single issues take up a lot of
Mm.
fucking space too, my man. I've got four Tupperware things over here that are about three shelves each, stacked with singles.
Mm. Yeah, yeah.
And then I have a collection in my closet that are also stacked. And I also have long boxes that are across from me, but those are special long boxes. So,
Mm.
some stuff they don't put out omnibuses for, or they don't put out
Yeah.
trades for. So I have the entire 90s Azrael run, which is like 150 some issues, and they never put out a trade for Azrael. Aside from like
Mm.
the Sword of Azrael storyline where they introduce him and like the Nightfall storyline, but this is the series that took place after Nightfall. So I have all of those in a long box. I have the 80s Blue Beetle run that Len Wayne did. Um,
Mhm.
that's in that box. I have most of the 90s Superboy run in that box. And then I have some like odd like storylines that I just really enjoy over in there too in single issues. But yeah, I mean after a while I try to find places to donate single issues. But most often than not, you kind of just have to pitch them after a while, which is kind of like,
Yeah.
kind of sad, but it is what they were designed for originally. Like you weren't supposed to keep comics, you weren't supposed to collect them. They were designed to like you read them and throw them away like a newspaper. That's why like
Mm.
we talked about like the reason why like the 90s comics were so like there's that 90s comics boom is because people were starting to sell copies of like the old Golden Age stuff, like original issues, and they were going for millions of dollars. And the reason they were going for that, it was like first appearances of like major characters, but also people threw away comic books back then, so there weren't many copies of them left.
Yeah, yeah.
And that was before, like we started inventing artificial scarcity. So that's kind of like some exceptions to that. Like, so going back to the Starman Omnibus and how much money, like some of those books they did not give a high print run to. So like
Yeah.
just because something goes into trade, it doesn't mean that it's always going to be easy to find. Like
Hmm.
it might be when they first put it out, but give it a few years and it may not be. There's a reason why that Generation X Epic Collection I paid like $20 more for it than the cover price, and that's because A, it was the first storyline for Generation X, and B, that had been out for a few years. So it's sought after the most, for sure. Because if you're gonna start at the beginning. And yeah,
Yep.
Starman was kind of like that. And then like after like you can get the first Starman omnibus kind of easily. It starts to get real tricky after that. Like I think the third Starman omnibus had either the third or the fourth had a very low print run to the point that I paid $300 for a copy of it,
Whoa.
which is the most I've ever spent. So I spent $300 on the third or fourth Starman omnibus. I can't even remember which one it was. I could get the fourth one
Oof.
relatively easily if it wasn't the third one, or the fifth one, and then the sixth one I had to pay 150 for. Because again, like
Hmm.
that was like one of those series that had a definitive beginning and an end. It was critically acclaimed, beautiful art, great writing, and they just didn't make a ton of them after the first one because it's declining. People want to read the first one, and if they want to come back and read the rest, they will, and if they won't, they won't. So,
Yeah.
what's the most money you've spent on a trade?
Oh, I mean, obviously, like you say, those omnibuses do get quite expensive. The
Yes.
like usually the ones which like come in on sort of hardback and have the fancy like cover over the top and everything. Like I think I spent probably about 120 quid for the X-Men omnibuses that came out. Like I've got the first three of those, which I think are just the from the start of Uncanny X-Men onwards, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm not 100% sure. But aside from that, though, like I've spent quite a bit on some of the Epic collections which had gone out of print. I think there's one X-Men one which was like is either Bishop's Crossing or the Executioner's Song. I can't remember which one, but like one of them had come out years ago and like just completely disappeared.
Really?
Like the original run had been bought up and like you'd see it occasionally on like eBay, but the price would be like 120 quid
Yeah.
for that as well. So I think I managed to track one down to like a it looked like a dodgy sort of comic book shop up in Scotland somewhere, like Edinburgh or something.
Dodgy
Like I
stuff in
found
Edinburgh?
it on a website. I mean, yeah, the website didn't look legit, but
Yeah.
I thought, well, fuck it. If I can pay 50 quid for this, which is like,
Ridiculous.
pretty reasonable, I'd do that.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, aside from that, there was also one trade of Thunderbolts
Mm-hmm.
back in the day, like right around the time when Norman Osborn takes over the team.
Good run.
And that one was another one which, like, it must have been,
Just a
out
low
in
run.
print like a couple of years before.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was so hard to find, and then I had to pay over the odds to get it. But sort of needed it to kind of complete the collection.
Can I say real quick, and this is just an aside about Thunderbolts? It is so weird that like when I think of the Thunderbolts, I think of those critically acclaimed runs, which is either like the first run where it's the villains pretending to be heroes, and then I think of like
Hmm.
the Civil War and Dark Reign era, where it was
Yeah.
like just a dark series. I remember like I mean the Civil War one in particular was brutal. I mean Bullseye like
Hmm.
paralyzing people, you know. Um
Yeah, yeah.
it is so weird to see how almost kind of goofy and lighthearted they've made Thunderbolts in like since then. Like it doesn't
Mm.
even feel like the same attitude and it's odd to me. I'd love for them to go
I'll
back
be honest.
to a Warren Ellis kind of run on that.
Well, I mean, that would be great. Uh, I haven't read Thunderbolts in so long. Like it's not really been like a series that's stuck around from,
Yeah.
a long period of time, like over the last 15 years or so. So I guess that's probably why I've not sort of invested in it because it doesn't feel like, well, one, it is going to stick around, and two, like it's consequential to like other stuff going on
Hmm.
like in the Marvel world as well. So it's like, well, I can skip this, I think.
Well, I remember
Especially,
they were pitching that like the latest series, which I imagine is already over because I think like some of
mm,
the stuff they've already introduced with it has changed. They were advertising this new Thunderbolts book, and then like after the Thunderbolts movie came out, they're like, "Surprise! It's actually New Avengers," and it's like, what? It feels like you just shot your own IP in the foot on that one.
yeah,
Just Marvel
yeah,
Disney synergy once more.
hmm.
But yeah, I saw that Eddie Brock is no longer Carnage again, so that's good news for Dylan.
Oh, okay. I am currently reading through Venom trades at the moment, from the series just before this all new Venom.
Just before Mary, so it's Dylan
Um,
Brock as Eddie as Venom is what you're reading, right?
yeah, yeah, that's right. And then Eddie is basically the King in Black, but there's um he's run into different versions of himself in
Okay.
the time stream where like he's it's like different variations of him being broken, and then of evil variation who kind of fixed himself towards the end. Um, and I didn't enjoy the series to begin with, but like I've been getting into it a bit more. But it's a bit scattershot because it's some stuff dealing with Eddie sort of in the far-flung future dealing with all this, and then some stuff where it's Dylan in the present where he's got his own stuff going on. There's like Carnage coming into it now as well and crossing over. So there's a lot going on with the series, and it feels like maybe it could have been a bit tighter. But honestly, it's kind of why I like doing trades as well, is because you can sort of get the full picture of
Mm-hmm.
everything going on, like reading it, all together rather than having to wait, a month for the next issue to come out. And my memory's so bad, I would 100% forget what happened in the previous issue.
So that's a good segue into talking about pros and cons. So the pro you just mentioned is being able to read an entire storyline that's like contained in one thing, and you don't have to worry about forgetting details between issues, which in an ideal world is the next month. So you read your 24 pages,
Mm,
you wait a month, you get another 24 pages of the story. That's the ideal world.
mm,
Right before we
yeah.
started recording, I said we should probably start recording. I was looking at my pull list to see where, like, just to get an idea of, like, oh, if it comes up, like, how many series am I currently subscribed to? And then I saw the solicitations or the release schedule for Batman. So Batman is kind of all over the fucking place right now in the sense that the September 1st, I believe, actually, was supposed to be the beginning of Matt Fraction's run on Batman, and it came out as
Hmm.
scheduled. So Batman 1 issue 1 has come out, issue 2 has come out for October, and issue 3 has just come out in November. I have not read any of these issues so far. I have them in a pile right now. And the reason I have them in a pile is that Jeff Loeb's Batman run has yet to finish. Jeff Loeb's Batman storyline, Hush 2, which was supposed to have implications that were impacting Matt Fraction's run, is not done yet because it has been delayed significantly
Yeah.
because of Jim Lee on art. And we love Jim Lee. He's a legend in the business. He moves at his own fucking pace because he's one of the publishers at DC and can do
Hmm.
what the fuck he wants. So,
Yep.
this storyline was supposed to end in August. The penultimate issue of this, I think, is coming out either last week or this week. I think it's last week.
Hmm.
I haven't picked up this week's comics yet. So the penultimate issue is supposed to come out now, and the last issue is supposed to come out at the end of January. So at that rate,
Yeesh.
the beginning of Matt Fraction's Batman run will have released its 5th issue by then. And this storyline is supposed to explain some of the things that have happened. So, for example,
Mm.
from what I understand, like all great Batman storylines, and I'm going to use great with sarcasm, Batman has lost the trust of some of his allies because of his paranoia and his unwillingness to let people in sometimes. So
Hmm.
his relationship with Jason Todd, with Nightwing, with Batgirl or Oracle, and others have been fractured. And part of that is explaining why in Matt Fraction's run, Tim Drake is his Robin and not his son Damian, who is one of those other people his relationship got damaged with.
Mm.
So we have yet to see that happen in Jeff Loeb's run. So I don't want to start reading Matt Fraction's run until I get that bit done, because you kind of
Yeah,
want
yeah.
to go in understanding some things. So that's a great pro for waiting for the trade, is that you don't have to worry about the
Mm.
storyline getting significantly delayed due to health issues or scheduling issues or work issues that come with all-star talent. I mean, we'll be there. And like I said
Yes.
earlier, it's Jim Lee and Jeff Loeb. Who's going to tell them they can't do something, right? So they're going to do what they're going to
Exactly.
do. They're going to do what they're going to do, and it's going to take time. But I think a lot of it, because I think Jeff Loeb's other series, which was the sequel to The Long Halloween, that just
Mm.
now finished as well, and that storyline's been running I think for over a year, and I think it was only supposed to go a year, so that also had some delays.
Okay.
So yeah, um, so pro for trades in that sense. Your enjoyment of the story has not been derailed because of scheduling problems.
But that also sort of leads me to a con for the trades as well, in that like it's got all those delays there. But I mean, like it seems DC especially not great for bringing out trades in like a sort of timely manner.
Yeah.
Like with Marvel, usually like they release the issues, the trades will then come out maybe about like 4 or 5 months later. So there's not that much of like a turnaround, but like some of the trades for DC, because I like collect Batman and stuff, and it's just yeah, like so far off in the future that the next Batman trade is gonna come out, and it's like, well, you know, like if I wanted to read this, then I'm gonna have to wait ages for it to come out anyway. So
So
it makes you kind of think, well, why don't I just buy the issues in that case?
from what I understand, that's part of the reasoning. Because this is another. Well, I don't know if you're going to put this on the pro side or the con side, but that is
Mm.
apparently legitimately one of the reasons. Because if you delay that release, you're also delaying people buying the trade. So you're going to either push them towards buying the monthly, or DC Comics has a online platform, DC Infinite, which I use
Mm.
sometimes if I just want to read trash that I don't want to buy. So, for example, I started reading the '90s Fate comic, which was the super edgelord Doctor Fate's like adaptation, where instead of wearing the big gold
Yeah.
helmet and the cape, he's got like tattoos and a leather jacket and like a face tattoo. He's cool. He's a cool guy. I started reading
Yeah.
perfect use for the online platform. But for $7 a month, I can read old stuff like that, or I can read the newer stuff that's on a slight delay, usually about a month or so. Like the absolute
Mm,
trades haven't come out yet, but I can go online with my $7 and start reading up. I think up until the last two issues of the absolute comics, or if I pay a premium price on top of the $7, I can read the shit as it comes out. And I
yeah,
think
yeah.
they're pushing people to the online platform and buying monthly that way. Um, and the reason why I'm
Which
saying
is interesting because I was just gonna say, like, I think if I had started getting into comics a bit later, I probably would have gone all in on, doing the online stuff rather than, collecting the physical book.
yeah,
'Cause it feels like it's like an easy way to do it, uh, and to be able to read everything all in one go.
mm-hmm.
Um, and like, yeah, like it sounds as if like the way of how it works and everything has only improved over the last like 15, 20 years as well. So yeah, kind of wish I'd gone that route, but
We
never
as we
mind.
do our episodes on pros and cons of trades versus monthly, we are actually just making an argument for why I should read online.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't have to socialize with anyone; you can just get it all at the same time. I will say this: I think Marvel does, even though they put in their comics like the advertisements for like scan this code to get this copy electronic. I think they do a shit job
Mm,
at advertising their online service. I just saw
mm,
that because we were talking about it. Is why I bought Generation X. I'm a big fan of the character Banshee. I just found out that not only was he a leader of a team of X-Men in a book that was exclusively online, but it was 42 issues. There was a
right.
like astonishing X-Men, I think is what it was called, and like he was the main character, and it went 42 issues, and they announced the cancellation. I'm like, how am I just now seeing the cancellation, but I never saw the announcement that this was a book that was happening? Like straight up, the only time I've ever really seen the Marvel Comics online app advertised was either in an issue that I bought with the sticker that says scan this code to get your copy of the book you're currently reading,
Mm-hmm.
or when they made the announcement of the Kid Juggernaut book, which spawned our joke of Baby Juggernaut. Because Kid Juggernaut's an online only comic,
Yeah, yeah.
and it's like, man, the fact that they're like employing creative teams to make exclusive online comics and they're not advertising that seems like such a waste of money. But it's also Disney's money, so I don't really care.
Yeah, yeah.
Because like DC doesn't have exclusive online comics that I'm aware of.
Oh, it
Um,
doesn't?
Not that I'm aware of.
Oh, okay.
Well, no, actually, they do. They have a partnership with Webtoons, and but they're kind of goofy Tumblr era kind of comics. Like, do you know what I mean when I say like a Tumblr era comic? Are you familiar with what Tumblr is
Not
or
really.
was?
Yes.
Okay, so Tumblr, their fan base, the people who use comic or who use Tumblr that are comic book fans, have a reputation of being for the fans of more of the character interactions than necessarily like the storyline content or like action. So, like for example, there is a
Mm,
comic series called Wayne Family Adventures, and it's basically just a comic of like the Bat family outside of costume interacting with each other. Like it's lighthearted, it's kind of goofy, it can be silly, but people really dig it on Tumblr. So like they have a web like that's a Webtoons DC comic.
right, right.
So to kind of take us back to the whole trade paperback versus monthly, um I think you were talking about like DC having that delay between when a storyline finishes and when they put it out in trade, and how that's annoying because of that gap, and that it's likely to push sales of the monthly. So the reason that books get canceled, it's based off of like the monthly sales, right? So like the age
Hmm.
old rule, and I don't know if it applies anymore, but this is going back to 2007. If your book had over 20,000 sales a month, you were usually in good standing. But the second you started to dip, that's cancellation numbers. And I would not be
Yeah.
surprised if that's the reason why, because I think DC takes bigger chances with books than Marvel does at times. Like I think
Mm.
they just announced that Green Arrow was canceled again. I think issue 30 is going to be the last Green Arrow, and that's a bummer because it was a really good run. But, Green Arrow is a character that ebbs and flows when he gets series. But like there's a Batgirl comic that's out right now. They just put out like Kids of King Arthur's Court like as a goofy little kid comic. DC takes those chances, and I think it's because they have that delay. Whereas with Marvel, the turnaround is so much faster on the trades, and I think that does hurt some of their books. Like, I'll be honest with you, I think that's probably why they do so many fucking miniseries, because you could just slap another number one on it, run it 5 issues, and either extend it or put out a new number one. Because, like, Storm was a monthly
Yeah.
book, and it got canceled so Age of Revelation could run. Now that Age of Revelation is ending, it's now starting over with a new number one, but now it's a mini series that, if the sales are still good at issue 5, maybe they'll have another mini series shortly thereafter. So I do think the quick turnaround for trades does hurt some of like the storylines in that sense that people are trade waiting. Because that again, that was the bane of some people's existence in the old like CBR forums in the 2000s. Oh god, I'm dating myself. 2007, 2008 comic book resources, seeing like fans of Batgirl and stuff getting mad that people are trade waiting because it's hurting the monthly sales, which means that the comic book's not looks like it's not
Mm.
selling as well, and then inevitably going to hurt. So yeah, which is why I bought that Superboy comic, because it's like, well, if I bought the monthlies and then I buy the trade, then perhaps that will show DC there is a want for this character and they will be more inclined to use him.
Yeah, yeah.
So is there like what's another con that you can, as a person who reads trades, what is a con that you can think of? Because like the one that comes to mind is sort of that delay and stuff. Like, so Dylan doesn't really give a shit about spoilers sometimes. We've talked multiple times about stuff that's
Mm.
happened. But like for example, there's still eras like stuff that's happened with the X-Men that we try not to talk about because you've been reading through the Krakoa era. We don't want to spoil anything for you. Would you say that's a
Hmm.
con in that sense?
Kind of like, I don't want stuff spoiled for me, but at the same time, I don't avoid spoilers. And, it's kind of like I was saying before, like my memory's so bad anyway. Chances are I'm gonna forget it. So by the time I get around to reading it, so it's not too much of an issue for me. But I mean, it definitely does feel like sometimes you're constantly playing catch up when you can be, pretty far behind what's currently going on. But then maybe that sort of helps when it comes to spoilers as well, because say if I'm reading the start of the Cocoon Age and like stuff is happening in this latest run, and I hear something that happens there, like it's so far off and so completely, separate from what I've just started reading that it's not going to make much impact on me one way or the other. So,
Yeah, I mean
yeah.
to even use X-Men as a reference, because like they've completely exited the Krakoa era and now they're doing like the
Mm,
Age of Revelation and stuff. Like if I told you like what's happening in Age of Revelation, that's gonna have no impact on what you're reading at all.
yeah, exactly.
Which there is something I've been really dying to talk about, which fucking blew me away because it was a choice. Um, I'll bring it up now and we'll just edit it out. So in Age of Revelation, I was really confused when we were reading the solicitations for all those miniseries, because there was the one book that Gale was writing that's about Gambit and how he's like mourning the loss of Rogue because she's dead. But then there's the other book that's called Rogue Storm that's all about Rogue leading a team of like basically X-Force characters to go kill Storm because she's become a crazed
Yeah.
goddess. And I was like, how did that happen? Well, it was revealed. Somehow, some way, Rogue got split into two different beings, and they are referred to as Rogue and Red Rogue. And Red Rogue wears red. And so Gambit does not know of the existence of Red Rogue. Red Rogue knows that she got separate, like split from regular Rogue. So while Gambit's Rogue did die, and apparently she died by like absorbing Galactus's power and turned into a giant statue, um, Red Rogue is like off trying to kill Storm, and it's just so fucking weird. I was like, okay, I mean that's certainly a take. So yeah, there you go. Two rogues.
Hmm.
One's dead though, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, so what a weird way to have your cake and eat it too.
I mean, I guess, yeah, that comes with these sort of events where,
It's in the future.
especially, yeah, like the sort of outworld kind of like, uh, alternative dimension kind of thing. Like you
Yeah.
can just go crazy and do whatever you want. And that's the like a hard thing as well when it comes to just comics in general is like knowing what's worth collecting and what isn't.
It's
Because
true.
I'm sure there's like probably in my trade collection there's stuff which just is completely inconsequential and I don't really need. It doesn't do anything for the characters or anything. It's just like a little aside or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, why did I spend a significant amount of money on this, which I'm probably never going to go back and reread?
Yeah, I honest to God, like that is kind of just like I will say that is a positive about reading monthly is it makes it really easy to drop. Because you could be like, all right,
Hmm.
this is taking a direction I don't need it to, and I can drop. Um, Case in point, Tim Drake is my favorite Robin. Tim Drake is also probably in my top 5 characters of all time. And a few years ago, they made DC made the call that Tim was going to come out as bisexual, and uh, all of the like that entire reveal and then the storylines following it was handled by this writer. I think their name is like something Fitzmartin, Megan Fitzmartin.
Hmm.
And as somebody who is in the I guess technically in the bi community, the way that Anne was writing Tim, that's not really like a bisexual male. Like suddenly Tim was just very just as a gay man, a kind of a femme gay man at that. And it just seemed kind of out of nowhere. And it completely disregarded a lot of the previous continuity. At that point, Tim had been in a very long relationship with a female character, and they ended that off panel by him basically just ghosting her. And then when
Okay.
they came back together, when he basically like saw her again and revealed like, yeah, sorry, I was going through some things, realized some things about myself, and I've now started this relationship with this guy. She got excited because now she got to have basically treated his boyfriend as like her new gay best friend, despite the fact that it's like you and Stephanie have been in a long relationship for years. Like in the old continuity, in the old DC continuity, Stephanie had like an unplanned pregnancy with a different person, and like Tim went to
Mm.
um like pregnancy classes with her. Like that was Tim's dedication as a boyfriend, was like helping her through the pregnancy and stuff. So like to have it handled so poorly, it just seemed like Megan Fitzmartin had storylines that they wanted to run with Tim that didn't involve Stephanie and wanted to just get from point A to point B. It just left a bad taste in my mouth. And plus, the art
Yeah.
was so bad in those series, and it was just like I read the first issue of that after reading a couple of miniseries that that Megan Fitzmartin wrote for Tim, and realized I don't want to read this. And for the first time, I didn't read a Tim Drake run, It ran, I think, like 10 issues and got canceled for sales because it was not alone in feeling that.
Mm,
But it was still like I didn't wait and buy a $20 trade just to realize I didn't like it within the first couple pages.
yeah.
So there
And
was a low risk there.
I wish I could have done something like that to kind of avoid buying some of those Krakoa era books, like that second
Knights of
like
X.
chapter of the well, Knights of X wasn't good as well.
Okay.
I was gonna say the Marauders,
Oh,
like I can't remember who the writer was, but like
that's
yeah,
Steve Orlando.
it could have been, but it was just dreadful. Like the art was horrible in that as well. And pretty much one issue in, I was like, oh man, this sucks. But because I've got the trade, I feel obliged to read through the entire thing, which was an absolute slog.
Yeah, it looks like Steve Orlando, which
Yeah.
they're the person writing the DC AEW crossover 2 issue miniseries. So bring out the
Oh
big
wow,
guns.
wow. Definitely not reading that then.
Yeah, for a multitude of reasons, not reading that one. Um, I don't know why they like this. Another short aside. I think we should do an episode at one point on wrestling comics because there have been a lot of wrestling comic books over the years, and none of them have been very
Mm-hmm.
good. I think it's something that doesn't translate to comic books very well.
I've always wanted to read the Kane comic book they did back in the day, which was sort of like filling in some of his backstory and trying to, like add a bit of flavor to his character. But yeah, I've never managed to track it down.
I'm sure it'll be something, especially if it was a comic put out in the '90s.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like I said, so that's that is a positive, is low cost or low risk in that sense of like I bought one issue of this Robin series and realized it was trash and didn't continue
Yeah.
on with it, as opposed to spending like 20-25 for it when it was put out on trade.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I will also say though that because of being able to jump in and out pretty easily, that does also make the trades really handy when you do like I'm trying to think of like a real good example, like case in point. Right, cool. Case in point. I when it comes to Green Lantern, I have a favorite Lantern, and that's Kyle Rayner. The only time I've read Green
Mm.
Lantern where Kyle was not the main character was when Grant Morrison was writing Hal Jordan, and I was reading that one because Grant Morrison writing space stuff, and he got real weird with it and pissed off some people because Grant just said one day like, "Yeah, well, why wouldn't Hal Jordan be pansexual?" And people lost their fucking minds because like, what do you mean? It's like, well, he's having sex with aliens in space. Why would they conform to gender binary? They're aliens. They might have something else entirely going on. So technically, that would make them pan. But anyway, I was not reading this most recent run of Green Lantern, and then I found out that the Beast plot to the story that has been running for the last year was actually starring Kyle, and the Superboy that I just showed you in the trade was also part of Kyle's team as they were going in space doing their own thing. And I went, all right, well, I actually kind of want to check that out now because like I don't really give a shit about Hal Jordan as Green Lantern, but these other characters I do. So now I have a reason to buy like the first trade or two of Green Lantern to get caught up on that story.
Mm-hmm.
So trades do make it easy to get caught up. I'm not having to dig through the bins trying to find all the old issues before then, which you run into the situations of like if it's a number one, they might not be that many of them left, or you might have to overpay for it. If
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
just holes in general that you're having to spend. Like I said, I have almost a full run of Superboy from the '90s in a long box across from me, and I'll have to track those missing issues down at some point because they didn't put out a trade for the '90s Superboy aside from like the first storyline.
Do you keep a track of like what you own and what you're missing so you can kind of try and fill those gaps?
I have two ways of doing it. One's incredibly manual, and the other's pretty easy. So I have a notes app, on the notes app on the phone. I have all of the missing numbers
Mm.
for that Superboy run that I need.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's the manual way. There is an app that I use to track my comics, like my pull list and what's coming out, called like Comic Geek, and we've used them before in the past on the show. There was a very cursed episode of the
Mm-hmm.
podcast that never came out where Dylan and I were just looking at stuff, and yeah, basically the capture froze really bad to the point that it was completely unusable. But anyway, um, that makes it pretty easy to track what comics you want, what comics you have, and what comics you've read. So you can indicate like I
Mm-hmm.
have these, but I've not read them, or I need this, or etc. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
full long database. Sometimes I'll be honest. Sometimes searching on it can be really hard, especially if it's a character that's had a lot of runs. So like if I'm looking
Mm-hmm.
for like Green Lantern, I have to get very specific about the volume number because if you just search Green Lantern, you're going to get so much shit brought back in the return.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
What about you? Because you're like I said, you're reading trades, and I've noticed with the Epic collections, um, we'll come back around to this, but previous
Mm.
to the Epic collections, there was the Essential collections, which were usually in those books they weren't colored, so it was just black and white pages, and they were like phone
Yes,
books.
yes.
But
Yeah.
we'll come back around and talk about that in a moment. Those were numbered, whereas I noticed in the Epic collections, they are sort of they go by like I said, there's no number on the spine here if you're looking on the webcam or on YouTube. It just
No,
says the
but
name of the
there
storyline.
should be a number inside it though, because they do come with like a numbered series.
But there,
There you go.
yeah.
Volume one.
But if you're just scrolling, if you're just at the store and you're just running your finger around the spines on the shelf, you're not going to see that.
Yeah,
So that's a pain.
absolutely.
Whereas the essentials were numbered. But do you have like a way that you track what you need, what you don't, especially now with the switch to Epic collections where they don't put that right on the spine?
Yeah, I mean, like a few years ago, Marvel came out with like sort of explainer of like how their numbering works for like certain runs. So like it would tell you like how many uh issues were in like volume one and volume two and volume three and how that affected like the legacy numbering.
Mm-hmm.
So I was able to kind of use that to kind of build my own sort of spreadsheet. Um, and then because I was keeping a track of like what books I had and what books were coming out or, had been out and I was looking to buy, I was able to kind of combine the two. And so now I've got this spreadsheet on my Google Drive where I've like added like a formula where I can color the cells, which I've sort of the
You have an if then
the
formula going?
trades that I own. Yeah, yeah,
Two people who work in two
and
people
it
who work
helps
in
me to keep
spreadsheets at
it.
work.
Yeah, yeah, you can tell.
Yeah.
Um,
Immediately in my
so
head, I'm like,
yeah,
oh, how would you
that's
do
the
that? Oh, okay.
it's so it's all manually done by me basically, rather than getting a an app or something for it.
Mm-hmm.
But then I'm kind of a nerd anyway, so I like doing it that way.
I feel you. Like I said, I love organization. That would make that bookshelf terrifying because it will snap one day, and I'm terrified. That happened to me once before. I had a bookshelf that did collapse in on itself from the weight. So
Oof,
yeah, it
jeez.
was a good day. Uh, um, so we're to circle back to the essentials collections. That, like I said, that was a
Mm.
previous thing that Marvel did. They were about the size of phone books. They were pretty
Mm-hmm.
affordable, if memory serves, and a lot of that's because the pages were black and
Yeah,
white. They
yeah.
didn't color them. Um,
Yes.
the focus being, I think, was they were pushing more for affordability than anything else to attract readers that way.
I've got a Wolverine run, which is basically in that those essential formats where I think I've managed to buy like 5 or 6 volumes, and it basically covers like the first 120 odd issues of his solo series.
Mm-hmm.
was kind of tempted to like start coloring them in myself as well, but I thought, hang on, no, that's just gonna take forever. Don't do that.
Yeah. I had the first three Moon Knight essential collections. I had the first
Hmm.
Doctor. I think I had the first two Doctor Strange ones, and then I had a couple of odds and end X Men ones that were that way. And I liked the essential collections because of that. The affordability and just that kind of like the material that the books were made out of. Like the binding was really soft and easy to carry. Um,
Hmm.
do you prefer the essentials or the epic collections?
I mean, I think you really, well, for me anyway, I would really want like the sort of full experience with color and everything. So like the Epic collections definitely win out for me. But as like an affordable alternative, like was great. Like easy to kind of build a collection but not spend too much. And like I say, like the books themselves just seem to come out with way more like issues in each volume than you typically get in like the Epic collection. So it was sort of easier to get like longer runs of these series as well.
Yeah,
So there's definitely pros and cons for both.
yeah, yeah. I guess they actually had like some Captain America ones too. I ended up selling them. I would go through cullings of my trades every now and then because again the weight of the bookshelf. Uh, but
Hmm.
also we were talking about affordability. DC has started to do this thing. I don't know if you've seen them, but they call them DC Compact Comics, which is a trade paperback, but in a small book sized instead of
All right.
like a trade. You know, like when I think of a trade, I think of like more magazine sized. These are actual book
Yeah, yeah.
sized, and they are selling them in like Target stores and whatnot, and they're like $10, and they are like
Hmm.
essential storylines. So you can get like Hush, Final Crisis, Killing Joke, you know, like all of the big heavy hitter storylines, as well as like
Hmm.
the first like volume or two of like more recent Nightwing, more recent Batgirl, etc. I don't own any of
Okay.
them, but I've seen them at the comic book store. They keep them like on the counter, and I've seen them at Target too. So I guess that's like another way they're trying to penetrate, you know, unconventional markets. I mentioned earlier like the bagged comics where you get like 10 in a little bag for like $3 or whatever. I don't know if you get 10 of them, but at my grocery store next door, they have a DC Comics display at the entrance that have like several of them, and they're all more recent comics like, you know, a lot of the
Hmm.
Rebirth stuff, a lot of the New Frontier stuff, a lot of like I saw some Grant Morrison, you know, like Superman and the Authority comics up front as well. So it does look like the DC's trying to explore different ways to get out of the comic book store and into more open areas again.
Yeah, yeah.
Would you look at would now? I know you're wanting the full experience. From what I understand, I've not really looked at these in great depth. They are in color, but they're small. Would the small size be something that would
Hmm.
attract you as a trade person or deter you? Because I mean, it's like $10 versus like 20-25 for the same volume, but just in a smaller format.
I don't know. Like, I think I'd have to check one out and see it for myself. Because on the one hand, I think, just in terms of practicality and space and everything, if I could get smaller books, that would be amazing. And obviously it wouldn't take up as much room that way. But I don't know. Again, I feel like it comes back to trying to get the full experience. And I guess it depends like how they're formatting it in these smaller books as well and everything. If it's just everything shrunk down and like, you have to squint to read it or whatever, then I probably wouldn't be a big fan of it. But um, I don't know. For me, I'd always go for just like the normal size trades
Yeah.
and over everything else.
I mean, I would say that like it would be nice for a like Case in point, I think it was it's either rumored or just revealed that the villain for Man of Tomorrow, which is the sequel to Superman, that they're pitching as a Superman
Hmm.
Lex Luthor team up, is going to be Brainiac, which fucking
Hmm.
great. It's Brainiac is a character that they have been needing to adapt for a long time, in my opinion. Like when I think of Superman villains, he's in the
Yeah, yeah.
top three. Um, so like if you were like DC Comics and you're trying to get people to read the comics themselves, and you're going into Target and you're putting out these smaller like paperback book size copies of your trades, you could like get an iconic Brainiac storyline, throw it on for a $10 book, put it near the toy section, and you could probably make some money that way. Um,
Hmm.
like I said, I don't see the compact comics being more for collectors like you and I. I think they're really more designed to get people who have maybe always heard of these storylines but have never read them, because like trades are kind of pricier and they're kind of big. So for example, like
Yeah.
if you're a casual, I hate the term casual fan, wrestling has ruined me for that. Um, if you're like a casual fan, someone who's not into the niche and are tempted to, I've always heard about Kingdom Come, or I've always heard about Killing Joke, and I want to read it, then if you're at Target and you find it for $10, that's low risk, and you're more inclined to buy it, and
Yeah.
maybe you'll want to read more of them, or maybe you will want to actually get into the larger size versions of it or whatever. But I mean, I do see the pros of doing a small handheld version of these older, like more iconic storylines. I can't for the life of me think that's going to be what they're going to do with all their trades moving forward.
No, I wouldn't have thought so.
I mean,
Maybe they're more like kid friendly as well, like
I
as
don't
like
know,
an
Killing Joke.
introduction for young kids. Well, yeah, maybe not that book specifically, but
Yeah, I mean,
in terms of uh, like trades versus issues. So there's one other little thing I was going to bring up. Um, what are your thoughts on ads in comics? Is it like I've got like a few single issues which I picked up to kind of help just plug little gaps between trades,
mhm.
and I'm amazed at just how many ads are in these uh like regular comic books.
I will tell you, my feeling on ads is completely dependent on how old the comic is. Modern day
Mm-hmm.
ads in comics are usually just advertising like buy more comics, or
Mm.
buy or watch this show or movie that's connected to the comics. But I told you I have long boxes of Azrael and Superboy from the 90s and stuff from the 80s. I love old ads. I love like going like, like seeing like an advertisement for like Mortal Kombat before like that blew up and was a huge thing, or like
Mm-hmm.
like they used to advertise like music in some of these issues. Like I saw there was this band, like I think their name is Paradise Lost, that was they're advertising an issue of Azrael, and I had to look them up on Spotify because I was like, I don't see many music advertisements in comics. Like, what made them think this would apply? And honestly, it sounds something a little like Dylan would like, if not, maybe he already knows about them. That might be something I'll bring up to him at some point. Like,
Mm.
have you ever heard of Paradise
Yeah,
Lost?
yeah.
But yeah, I love seeing like old advertisements in comics from like the 90s and 80s. A lot of like modern day ads just feel, I'm already reading Marvel comics. I don't need to be reminded that there's going to be 5 new X-Men books coming out. Or like in DC, it's like you got to go see Superman. I already saw it. So I already saw it.
Yeah.
And it's like, especially if it's like their own product, they're gonna market the fuck out of it, and you're like, man, I read predominantly DC comics, so I so many advertisements for Superman and Peacemaker, and again, weirdly enough, not really much for Creature Commandos, but yeah, that was to follow up on last time, but yeah, um, it all depends. Uh, like you said, you were saying that there were a lot of ads in the comics that are filling in your gaps. Do you have that same sort of level of like fascination, or are you more like, can this just fucking get out of the way?
Oh, 100% just get out the way. It felt really obtrusive, like just the amount of them and everything. And then, like that's why I kind of like trades as well. It's just so clean and like
The
you
ads
don't
are at
get
the
any
end.
of that. It's
Yeah, the
just,
ads are at the end,
yeah,
and they're just, here's some more
yeah,
trades.
basically, yeah.
Um, I will say so. This is like sort of plays along with it. They're more common in Marvel now than not. Letter columns. They've been making a return in Marvel for the
Hmm.
last few years. Where you're feeling because I don't think they're included in trades. You get introductions, you
No,
get
no,
forewords, but
definitely
you don't
not.
get like the letter columns. And letter columns can be kind of entertaining because the editors will let you know a little bit of what their thought process was, and especially in the old
Yeah.
like the 90s and 80s, Stan's soapbox. I loved Stan's
Hmm.
soapbox and the old hot or not meter where they would like you just see where pop culture was at a time. You're like, man, in 1992 we were really
Yeah,
up on Milli Vanilli or whatever the fuck.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm kind of glad they're not included in the trades nowadays because I don't know, it feels a little bit superfluous. Like I don't really need to read other people's opinions on the books and
Yeah.
stuff, and like the writer sort of either
Oh
defending
no,
themselves
editor.
or like
Almost always the editor now. It's never the writer.
isn't okay, fair
Almost
enough.
always an editor.
Um, I mean, I know what you mean though. It can be pretty entertaining. Like I've got some old Marvel Masterworks trades from like the beginning of the Spider-Man run. And those are like full of letter pages and
Oh yeah.
stuff with
I remember the
Stan
Marvel.
Lee kind of talking about it.
I remember the Marvel Masterworks. I had like a Hawkeye Marvel Masterworks. But yeah,
Mm.
um, well, I've received word that Dylan might have repaired his death ray, so that might be a sign for us to wrap this up before he decides to test it on one of our locations.
Yeah.
So ultimately, I see the pros and cons of both. I like reading my monthly, or my weekly, so I'm gonna keep doing that. And it sounds like you know the pros and cons of both, and you still enjoy your trades.
Oh yeah.
There you go. Well, I hope that you all enjoyed listening to two people who seem very stuck in their ways and are not going to be changing anytime soon. But if you have any thoughts on trades or monthlies, or if you're someone who's really into the digital formatting that neither of us are super into quite yet, then by all means, let us know in the comments. We'll touch on about your movie count when we chat with Dylan next. Just give him a
Mm-hmm.
little more time because, like you said, I feel like the death ray might be coming in soon. But John, where can people go to see
Yes.
where your current movie count is, as well as your thoughts and opinions on what you have seen?
They can head to Letterbox and find me at Big John Bowski, or one word.
There you go. Dylan, who is not here but has got his finger hovering over the button. Dylan has a couple projects that he gets up to during the week. Every Monday, he does a radio show from his home in Northern Ireland. I don't think it's actually from his home. He goes to a studio, if I'm not mistaken. Regardless, it is an internet
Yes.
radio station that he plays a lot of grunge music and other things that interest him. The show does not have a name. We confirmed that very recently, but you'll know it's Dylan because you will hear his lovely dulcet tones as well, and that can be found at bounce.digitalradio.com. You can find that in the link below, as well as his Twitch live stream that he hops in from now and then as he works on his animation skills. Additionally, I have other things that I do. One's a podcast called Large Old Cup. We've been on a bit of a hiatus because stuff has been very busy lately, as well as Henry's Usual, which is a writing thing that I do, which is also on a bit of a break at the moment. But the links to both are in the description. Until next time, however, you can find us on social media stuff, and I can't think of anything else to say. Is there anything else we should say?
I think all that's left to say is bye bye.
Bye.